Instead of doing something important, like painting my extra memory to look like that dragon off of Beowulf 3D, which is a movie you must go watch. If you don't get anything else out of this video, remember, you must go watch Beowulf 3D. I'm going to be talking about politics and Ron Paul. I'd much rather argue with Muslims. Oh gosh, that shows you how much I hate politics now. Ting Tangs, I have a bad feeling about this. He wants me to explain what was wrong with what Ron Paul said about don't ask, don't tell. Actually, somebody else was quoting what Ron Paul said about don't ask, don't tell in favor of Ron Paul supporting gay rights or something like this. Well, the entire problem is doublespeak. You know that religions do it and politicians do it all the time. They're worse than the clergy. Basically, it's equivocation. That's the technical term for it. When you say one thing, say that you're arguing against some point, and your opponent is arguing for some different point, but they have the same name. Go look it up. There's plenty of good examples. But the problem is that both of you separately sound completely reasonable. And if you were to ever hear these two people talk, they'd be arguing, but it doesn't sound like they'd be communicating anything. Well, it's because they're arguing against two completely different points. So the first thing we have to do with Don't Ask, Don't Tell and Ron Paul is nail it down what Don't Ask, Don't Tell is. I went ahead and looked it up. I was curious. A member of the armed forces shall be separated from the armed forces. I believe that means discharged. Under regulations, blah, 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 if one of the following findings is made. Number one, that the member has engaged in, attempted to engage in, blah, 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 homosexual acts. Unless you didn't mean to, there's actually some exceptions here. So if it's accidentally, if you slipped and it went in, you say, oops, I didn't mean to do that, then don't ask, don't tell, it just went right in my mouth, and I thought it was a lollipop or something. So it doesn't count under that. Number two, that the member has stated that he or she is a homosexual, bisexual, or words to that effect. Unless there's further findings or such that the person is not a person who engages in homosexual acts. I'm gay. Oh, just kidding, I'm not. Or that the member has married or attempted to marry a person known to be of the same biological sex. Really? He's a guy? Oh my goodness. So anyway, now that we know what it is, if you say you're homosexual and you actually are, then you shall be discharged. Pretty much. That's where it gets his name. Basically, don't tell. That should be the name, is you better keep it quiet. Somebody else said exactly what my thoughts on don't ask, don't tell is. It's not about prohibiting disruptive behavior. It actually bans or expels those who simply announce that they are homosexual, no matter what their behavior. Actually, you can have homosexual acts and you shall be discharged, or shall be separated, if you're not homosexual. But just being homosexual, independent of whether you actually committed those acts, then you shall be discharged. Read it, tell me that I'm wrong. Now let's go on to what Ron Paul says. I'll post a link over there this time. Somebody says, this guy's quoting Ron Paul, and apparently he thinks that it's for his position. But anyway, here's what Ron Paul says. I think the current policy is a decent policy. Okay, so we know what it says, so he agrees with that. It's actually confirmed later in the video where he doesn't raise his hand, where he says, where he's asked if people that are openly gay should be able to serve in the military. He says no. He goes on, the problem that we have with dealing with the subject is that we see people as groups, and that they belong to certain groups, and that they derive their rights from, or as belonging to groups. We don't get our rights because we're gays, women, or minorities. We get our rights from our Creator as individuals, so every individual should be treated the same way. So if there's homosexual behavior in the military that's disruptive, nice qualification, it should be dealt with. But if there's homosexual behavior that is disruptive, heterosexual behavior that's disruptive, it should be dealt with. So it isn't the issue of homosexuality, it's the concept and understanding of individual rights. If we understand that, we should be dealing with this very important problem. Oh, yay, freedom for all and liberty. Of course, but what is he really saying? It isn't the issue of homosexuality. I counted. Homosexual is mentioned 4 times in Don't Ask, Don't Tell. 4 times. It's not about homosexual. How many times was heterosexual mentioned? None. It is about homosexual. What is he talking about? He also says, so every individual should be treated the same way. Keep that in mind. Homosexual behavior in the military that's disruptive, it should be dealt with. Heterosexual behavior that is disruptive should be dealt with. I assume he means discharged or punished or whatever, separated from the military. But he also says that people that are openly gay should be kicked out of the military, or shouldn't be allowed to serve in the military. So what can we conclude? If he's being logical, and if he knows what Don't Ask, Don't Tell says, since he voted to keep it, and it was kept, then we can only assume that he's not committing a fallacy of the undistributed middle. I believe that was the fallacy. So the only connection is we should not treat people in groups. They should be individuals. And homosexual behavior that's disruptive and heterosexual behavior that's disruptive should be dealt with in the same way. People that are openly gay should be kicked out of the military. Well, the only conclusion is people that are openly gay are automatically have behavior that in the military that's disruptive. So that's basically what he's saying. Gays are disruptive to the military. If you read some of his other things, he basically says that it's an imperfection and it's a sin, but we can't keep people from coming in the military because we all have sins. As he says, Lofton was the guy's name, trying to get him to say that, all homosexuality is evil and all this. But he doesn't take the bait. He's trying to get some more gullible gays to vote for him, I guess. He wants to look like the not too conservative. This is also something Paul says. Even though those words aren't offensive to me, that don't ask, don't tell, don't sound so bad to me, I think the way it is enforced is bad. That was a quote. Anyway, he was obviously kind of getting choked up on what he was actually trying to say. The way it's enforced is bad. What's that like saying that there's a speed limit sign on the street next to my house, it says 30 miles an hour. If you say, well, it should be 45, but I agree with the 30 mile an hour sign, it's just enforced the wrong way. I mean, what does that mean? Enforced the wrong way. Don't ask, don't tell. Is an honorable discharge not the correct way to enforce it? Should it be dishonorable? What, should they be stoned, shot? How should we enforce it if that's not the right way to enforce it? Perhaps it should not be enforced. That's probably what the gays are going to say. Oh, that's what Ron Paul means, is that we shouldn't enforce it. That would be the right way to enforce it. The way that enforce it, that wouldn't be bad. Just sweep it under the rug. That's what we're going to do with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We're going to make this policy for the people in the Army to follow. Oh, yeah, but we're not going to enforce that. Oh, of course, when somebody comes around and wants to bash gays, which there will, of course, will be groups. Actually, it's a pretty funny Halo video I'll post on this side. That's the people bashing gays in Halo. It's pretty funny, though. And we're just going to sweep it under the rug until somebody wants to bash gays. But if you listen to what Ron Paul says, it's double talk. And it's always hard to argue against somebody that's doing that. Because what Ron Paul says, if you don't know what Don't Ask, Don't Tell means, or what the policy actually is, then it does sound like what he's saying is true. He doesn't want to know if you're gay, so don't tell him that you're gay. And if there's any behavior that's bad, we should punish it. That's basically what he's saying. However, for the actual policy that he does support, that's not what the policy actually is. It's double talk, and before I looked it up, I was sort of doubting, is Ron Paul, maybe he's right. Maybe it isn't about homosexuality, and maybe it is about behavior. But of course, no, it's not. It's about homosexuality. And all the gays that support Ron Paul, well, hopefully you disagree with him on this point and see that he's trying to sucker people into thinking that he's for everybody's side. He's just trying to get everybody to vote for him. And that's all it is.